Whether you're dreaming of a retirement with sand between your toes and a cold one in your hand, hitting the road to chase the winds of adventure, or spending time with your grandchildren, this show is intended to help you get there. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement with your host, Josh Knoll. You've worked too hard throughout your career to spend your retirement worrying. So sit back and kick up your feet because we've got lots of financial tips and tricks to share to help you get exactly where you want to be. Here's Josh.
Hello, Lower Alabama. Hello, Gulf Coast. Welcome in. Welcome to Coasting in Retirement. That's right. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new show for you. We got all kinds of great info coming your way. Josh Knoll here. I'm joined by my co-host and show sponsor, Mr. Jay Stubbs with Providence Partners. Jay, how are you doing?
Josh, I'm doing great. It's good to be back with you in studio and shedding some light and some cool AC while it burns up outside.
It's a little hot right now down here on the Gulf Coast.
If you're listening to this, I hope you're inside. If you're listening to this, I hope your air conditioning while you're driving. I hope your AC is working. Goodness gracious. Let's just stay cool-headed and try to find some fresh air, maybe in a Costco beer cave. I don't know.
That's right. Well, listeners, Jay and I are here today to discuss financial topics relevant to those of you in or near retirement, living your best life along our part of the Gulf Coast. Here's what we've got in store. First segment, deep dive on our topic of the day. Second segment, roughly 30 minutes past the hour. That'll be news, headlines of the week. And then roughly 50-ish minutes past the hour, stick around for our third and final segment. We call it Josh's Crystal Ball and Big Mouth. Buckle up. We've got a lot to get to. Quick background on me, for those of you new to this show. Again, my name is Josh Knoll. I'm a fee-based financial advisor. I hold my FINRA Series 65 securities license, and I'm the owner of Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. That is a 100% locally owned, 100% independent investment management and financial planning firm. We have offices in Fairhope, Orange Beach, and Mobile. You can find more information on me and the team at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors by visiting our website, gulfcoastfa.com, or feel free to give us a call, 251-327-2124. Now, if you just missed that contact info, get a pen and pad ready. We're going to repeat it several times throughout the show. So, Jay, I want to jump into our topic of the day. It's something you and I know pretty well, but I think it's something that's definitely worth dissecting a little bit. It's also one of the most common questions we get from clients. The question usually is, what should I do with my 401k? But specifically, what we're going to talk about today is, what should I do with my 401k when I retire? That's a very important question because more often than not, the 401k account or accounts are probably the largest retirement asset that a client has. So what I want to do today is answer the question of what to do with your 401k when you retire, and probably just as important, what not to do. So before we get started, any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I feel like that if you are employed by a small to medium or even large size employer listening to this show, you probably know what a 401k is. If you're a teacher in that marketplace, just remember 401k in the teacher market is 403b. So there's a lot of people listening that probably have access, are contributing, and are getting matched, and that's fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing because those are the dollars that you end up missing from your paycheck that go towards your retirement funding down the road. If you are not anywhere near retirement, and we'll talk about this, Josh, in many episodes in the past, retirement red zone, 5 years out from pulling that trigger. So if you're planning to retire at age 67 and you are 62, you are considered in retirement red zone. But a lot of you might be listening and say, well, I'm in my 30s or 40s or 50s and I'm nowhere near the red zone. We hope you have access with your employer as a benefit of that employer to have access to a 401k plan or a 403b if you're an educator. And we hope that you are taking advantage of it. And Josh and his team can answer questions on the different investment options that are tied to that. They can maybe steer you in the right direction on how to allocate your dollars as they go in, whether you keep reinvestment of the dividends that are paid, keep that on or off. That always helps the growth of the portfolio inside your 401k. So a lot of things to consider. But if you're driving, listening, walking around the house, and you're in retirement red zone and you have a 401k, 403b, or the like, then this show is for you today.
Very good. Well, let's do this, Jay. Let's start with one of the most common decisions that many retirees are going to make around their 401k/403b, like you just mentioned. Do they want to facilitate a rollover into an IRA, which is simply an individual retirement account? I think it's important to note here that just as with any 401k account out there from a former place of employment, more often than not, as we talk about these rollovers, I think it's important to note this. More often than not, you don't have to roll those funds out of the 401k. I think that's a common misconception. Would you agree?
I totally agree.
Right.
And they can stay there even though you haven't been with that employer for years. And some of you listening may have that. You do not have to roll it out. It's still under the care, custody, and control of that employer, and they're making decisions on that plan and the plan document that could affect you and your investments. But you're not at a loss by any means, but you are... You might not have some controls that you thought you would.
Well, so what we're going to do, we're going to discuss the reason for doing a 401k rollover into an IRA. We're also, to be fair, we're going to discuss reasons why you shouldn't take your funds out. You should leave them in the 401k. And as with everything in our line of work, it all depends on your individual situation. So take this as broad advice. First, let's discuss the factors to consider when exploring a 401k rollover into an IRA. Jay, we're going to start with costs. Now, most 401k plan fees have come down over the years. Would you agree?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
they have.
It's had what's called fee compression.
That's right.
But there are still outdated plans out there that have non-competitive fee structures. Even within the last year or two, I've seen 2 to 2.5% on a 401k plan, which doesn't sound like a lot when you say it, but I'm telling you right now, it's not competitive. And what it does, it kind of defeats the purpose of a 401k plan, which is supposed to be a low-cost vehicle to accumulate assets efficiently for retirement. Typically, but not always, but typically 401k plans, larger 401k plans, Jay mentioned it earlier, if you got a large employer, typically that leads to a large 401k plan, and usually that'll equate to lower fees. But even if you're retiring from a large corporation, you need to calculate, no matter the plan size, you need to know what is your all-in cost of your 401k, and then you need to compare and contrast that to the all-in cost of the IRA that you're going to. I'll say one more thing, Jay. I'm going to turn it over to you. If you mentioned it earlier, if somebody's doing a self-directed IRA, then the cost should be lower, right? But if you're working with a fee-for-service advisor like we are at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, not only do you want to know the advisor fee and compare and contrast that, but you also want to know what services are being offered for that fee. In my opinion, in 2025 and beyond, and I think it's been the last several years, an advisor should be doing more than just offering investment advice for their fee. So what do you think about that? What's cost? How important is that when you're considering a rollover?
Well, yeah, the higher the percentages that you hear or that you might read on your plan document, or you find out from your HR department, or you find out from anyone, that's just more drag on your portfolio's opportunity for growth. And we want to limit that drag. So yes, it is important to review the fee structure. Sometimes you may not have anything you can do about it. And
this is true.
The employer is stuck.
Yep.
They have not made any decisions, or they don't want to switch because they're getting really good value from the 401k team that's offering them. And so they feel good value is being provided. We don't want you to be listening to this and go in on Monday to your employer and start shaking the cages, right? We want you to be able to be educated, ask the questions, because you do need to compare. What's my drag on my portfolio going to be at a 401k if I leave it there, or if I end up rolling it over to an IRA? And that is something that, Josh, you can help dissect pretty quickly with giving the right documentation when a client meets with you.
Well, and you employers that are listening, based on what Jay just said, one of the ways you can avoid that uncomfortable conversation is to benchmark your 401k plan about every 3 years, 3 to 5 years. It's recommended 3 years, 3 to 5 years. We offer those services. We can help with the benchmarking exercise. Then you know if your costs are competitive in your plan. Because how many times have we seen benchmarking, Jay, and it was like, oh man, your cousin is really kind of taking a little too big a bite of the apple here, buddy.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to dive into relationships and nepotism and all the things that come with it. We know that in this day and age, a lot of scrutiny over fee structures and fiduciary responsibility. I mean, it's being hammered down from the federal government, the Department of Labor, and they're making sure that all the fiduciary standards are being met at the employer level as well as at the advisor, your level, my level. So we know that we're hoping everybody out there is dotting their I's and crossing their T's, but cost is something that we definitely need to be aware of.
Very good. All right, number 2 on our list, Jay, when consideration for rolling a 401k to a IRA. You mentioned it a minute ago, control. Generally speaking, with an IRA, it's a lot easier to do transactions such as trades, transfers, distributions, conversions. we discussed this on our last episode. Make sure that you're working with a well-known custodian on the IRA side. I don't know why it's called different. Jay, maybe you can enlighten us, but on the 401k side, they're called record keepers, but they serve similar functions. The point being is, generally speaking, on an IRA, if you've got a well-known third-party custodian, usually those like Schwab or Fidelity have a competitive platform that is easy to use technology. But control is a big thing. You talk about it all the time. I'll tee you up. You say care,
custody
and control. All right.
So the custodian of the 401k, 403b would be that third-party administrator and the trustee of the plan, which is typically the employer or some employer affiliate, if you will. That is the custodian. Custody is there. When you're a self-directed IRA, you're the custodian of your assets. You might have a platform that you have access to, but you are in care, custody, and control where you're in self-directed. You have a little bit less care, custody, and control when you have a 401k or a 403b. Doesn't mean you have total loss of control.
Right.
You just might be limited in your investment options.
Well, that's what's up next.
Yep. You might be limited in your I guess the data that you're looking for when you're reporting. Most of the times when we visit with clients, you know that they can log in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and see how their performance is doing. They can make reallocations. They can make, Josh, you and I talked about it earlier, for those that are looking for hardship withdrawals, that kind of stuff. We don't want to dive into the weeds of all of that, but a lot of options today for 401k plans. But you totally have more care, custody, and control when you are in a self-directed IRA. You have rolled it over because you are making those decisions with an investment advisor specialist like yourself.
Well, you just teed us up once again. You mentioned, so number 3 is investment options. So again, generally speaking, the investment options for a typical 401k plan will be somewhat limited. And there's a reason for that. There's nothing wrong with your plan. It's just by nature, these plans are designed to be a one-size-fits-all plan. They cannot discriminate. And when I say that word, I don't mean necessarily by race, color, or creed. They can't discriminate by salary. They can't discriminate by job title, rank, or anything like that. They've got the ability to be a one-size-fits-all, and that's fair to everyone.
There's a lot of electronic enrollment and investment objectives and decisions inside of these 401k and 403b plans, and you don't want the employee having to sit there and scroll and read and try to figure out. So they do a good job of building and making the offerings, but they say we're not going to offer 10 different small cap opportunities and mid cap and large cap and value and growth. We're just going to offer a small selection of that. I also want to point out here that a lot of people might be looking out at those time horizon investment objectives. Those are quite neat if you kind of want to set it and forget it. So you have a lot of people that will say, well, golly, I'm not retiring until 2050.
Right.
There might be a fund in there that is
target date fund.
Yeah, target date that is 2050 or thereabouts. So you've got some unique options out there. They're just going to be limited.
Yeah. The target date fund, for those of y'all that kind of pricked your ears up a little bit, that's a very common fund you see in 401k plans. And Jay mentioned the year date on it. Basically what happens with that is you set your target date for retirement. The fund will automatically manage itself to be more conservative the closer you get to
retirement.
That's right. Now, and Jay also mentioned this, it is the limited menu, there is a certain point to it, because what you don't want in a 401k plan is having somebody accidentally pick an inappropriate fund. So there's a lot of care that goes around picking those limited choices. But to compare and contrast that, on an IRA, you're typically going to have a much more robust and flexible investment option. It's the difference between eating at a buffet type restaurant versus eating at a a la carte specialized restaurant to some degrees. Fair?
Fair.
All right, number 4 in our reasons to consider for rolling a 401k into an IRA: consolidation, and Jay mentioned it again earlier, organization. Especially for those of you with multiple 401k plans from previous employers, I know from experience, keeping track of everything that you have can be a real pain. To be honest, it's difficult for even a seasoned professional like me or Jay to manage asset allocation across a bunch of different 401k accounts at different companies. You can do it. There are programs that help you consolidate it, but it's kind of a hodgepodge type of organization. And so if you're doing that on your own, if you're DIY on that, your asset allocation undoubtedly is probably not matching up with your risk profile and what you're trying to accomplish overall. And again, sometimes just as simple, like I can pick on Michelle, she's not here, just keeping track of passwords can be a real problem. So consolidation and organization, do you agree?
I totally agree. And look, peace of mind is what you're looking for. I've sat with people who have had several different really good paying jobs, been recruited well, moved up the ladder, and they have 4, 5, 6 different 401k accounts that are open. 2 might be with Fidelity, 1 might be with Empower, and another one might be with Schwab, and then they forgot about the other 2 until you pique their interest. You should consider consolidating at least all into one. I know the employer's 401k plans that are out there today, you can roll into a plan from a previous plan. But if you have a substantial asset and you want more care, custody, and control, you want more investment objectives, and you want to manage your cost, that's when you seriously look at the rollover.
Very good. All right. Number 5, we have a total of 6. We'll get through these last 2 real quick on things to consider, two that are kind of in the positive aspect of making that decision to roll your 401k to a IRA. Ease of use. Now, we've touched on this a little bit, but generally speaking, again, with an IRA, typically you're going to have a better user experience. Because a lot of times with an IRA, we mentioned it, there's no record keeper involved. There is a custodian, but not a record keeper. There's no HR professional. There's no TPA. And as you've probably seen in your experience, Jay, sometimes depending on how the 401k or 403b or anything is set up, you've actually got to get signatures and approvals from HR professionals that you haven't worked at a place for 10, 20 years. And sometimes those people aren't even there anymore.
Yeah, I used to call Cindy, and Cindy retired 5 years ago.
Exactly.
Now you got to deal with Butch.
Right. Butch don't care. So yeah, ease of use, it's definitely, and for whatever reason, this is a really broad statement, but as somebody that both manages 401k plans for clients and does individual wealth management, I can tell you for whatever reason, Jay, there's just much more physical paperwork on the 401k side. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as it relates to checks, physical checks, but there's definitely more paperwork on the 401k side. Don't know why, but historically that's how it is. And then lastly, coordination across all plans. Now this is kind of self-explanatory. Coordination across all your plans, especially for those of y'all who are looking to combine your investment and your investment accounts with a comprehensive financial plan. Your financial advisor should not be so OCD that they have to have everything in one individual spot. But I can tell you that it's going to be a lot easier if you can get things together where now you've got the power of scale in with your buying opportunities. You'll have more power of scale if you've got $1 million in an IRA than if you have 10,000 or 100,000 in 10 different 401ks. You're just gonna have a little more buying power, right?
I totally agree with that, Josh. And it goes all back up to the other rules of consolidation, the other one of peace of mind and ease and all of that. When you're in one self-directed, then that makes things a heck of a lot easier.
Or with an advisor riding a shotgun with you.
That's right.
All right. So we talked about some of the things to consider kind of on the positive side of the ledger if you're looking at doing a 401k rollover to an IRA, especially those of you all that are in or near retirement. Let's give you a couple reasons why you don't want to do a 401k rollover into an IRA. You ready, Jay?
Go.
All right. So let's say that you're retiring. Now, walk with me, listeners, here. If you're retiring before age 59 and a half, first, congratulations. But you're younger than 59 and a half, but you're at least 55 years old, or you're turning 55 that year, and you are looking to access your 401k funds. If you retire from the company that holds the 401k, your current 401k, you can access those funds without the 10% early withdrawal penalty that the IRS charges for people that access it before 59 and a half. You may say that again?
I think I've got it.
Okay.
But let me just hear you out if I put it in my layman's terms.
Yours is probably better.
I'm 55 this year. Really not. I'm 48. But I'm 55 this year. I am retiring early. I don't have to pay 10% because I am truly starting to make withdrawals from my 401k plan from my current employer. Well, I just want to talk about why people would do this early. Either A, they have done really, really well.
Right.
They've hit the mark. They've got plenty of dollars in their opinion to stop working or move on to the next phase of retirement or career or what have you. The second reason is a health incident,
Great point.
A health scare. We want to make sure that we are taking care of our body and our health so we retire early. And the third is they have received some sort of an inheritance. I hate to say the lottery mentality, but
sure.
Maybe a parent has passed away and left business assets or other assets or land or what have you. And somebody says, you know what, I don't have to work anymore if I don't want to. In all three phases of that life, and it could be something else, but those are the three that we see the most often. Certainly you want to have a conversation with a specialist like a Josh that says, you know what, here's what's going on. What do you think I need to be thinking about?
Well, and this is last piece on this, Jay. It's really important because you reiterated what I said, that for you to avoid that 10% penalty, the 401k has to be with your current employer,
That's
even
right.
if you're retiring from that employer. Well, what about the 401k plans from the previous place of employment that we've touched on a couple times already? If your current 401k plan allows for it, and most of them do, but not all of them, but if it allows for you to roll other 401k accounts into it, you can bring it in under that umbrella and you can avoid that penalty if it allows you to do that. You just need to check with your plan, the plan document, and see if it allows for that. That's one way to get this done. Now, again, we're talking about not atypical situations, but this is going to be somewhat, if you're in that position for whatever reason, Jay laid out a couple different things. I would absolutely really encourage you to get somebody professionally looking over your shoulder, because 10% doesn't sound like a whole lot of money off top of your head. But man, if you're doing that on a sizable distribution, you're talking about a pretty significant penalty. All right. And then lastly, Jay, so the other...
Well, let's say this. It's
Yes.
the income tax and the 10%,
That's
Josh.
right. Thank you very much. You're talking about leaving, depending on your income tax bracket, I mean, you're leaving close to half of what you took out, 40% in some cases, all that, right? All right, or 50 even. So now, the other reason to not do a 401k rollover into an IRA, if you're in the middle of a Roth conversion, know that the IRS has what's called the aggregation rule. They look at your total IRA assets to determine how much of the conversion is taxable. So when you're conducting a Roth conversion, you will want to avoid, to the best of your ability, pre-tax IRA assets as much as possible, including balances in your simple IRAs and your SEPs. Not that it's bad to have balances in there. It's just you're going to exacerbate the problem of the tax problem if you conduct a rollover into an IRA. Then you're looking, and again, this is all for early stuff. Funds in your 401k are not included in the aggregation calculation. That's a long, complicated way of saying Roth conversions are often presented on TV and the internet and YouTube as this easy thing that everybody should do. That is not the case. You need to have, in my opinion, a financial advisor working alongside with you, and definitely have some type of CPA or accountant. Form a team if you're looking at doing the Roth conversion, especially those of you all with significant assets on the Roth conversion. But know that there's going to be some rules around what's in your 401k versus your IRA. So very good on that, Jay.
Absolutely, Josh. You've hit a lot of information. And just remember, if you say, wait, what did he say? All you got to do is give Josh a call.
That's right. Yeah. Now, speaking of, if you're unsure what to do with your 401k, we encourage you to reach out to us. As Jay mentioned, you can call us 251-327-2124 or find us on our website, gulfcoastfa.com. So the FA is as in financialadvisor.com. On our site, you can click on the blue button in the upper right-hand corner. That'll set up a meeting on my calendar. Now, we've got several different meeting choices for you all. First, you can do a 15-minute introductory phone call, or you can do a 30-minute Zoom, or my preference, you can do a 1-hour in-person, no obligation, complimentary meeting at any of our 3 office locations. And reminder, you can find GCFA, Gulf Coast Financial Advisors offices in downtown Fairhope, or in Orange Beach, we're just down the road from the wharf, or in Mobile off Dolphin Street, or near the intersection of Dolphin Street and I-65. However you reach out to us, make sure you do. We would love to meet with you. All right, folks, coming up next, there's always a lot going on in the world, particularly the world of finance, investments, and money. Every week we scour the internet for financial articles related to our topic of the day, especially for those of you in or near retirement. So join us after the break to hear Jay and I discuss this week's relevant headlines in our News Headlines of the Week segment. Stay tuned.
A multidimensional financial services company, Providence Partners serves the needs of independent insurance, financial, and employee benefit professionals. The team at Providence Partners serves other business professionals like property and casualty agencies, registered investment advisors, community banks, and benefit brokers to assist in their clients' risk management planning. Whether an individual or business owner client, this planning includes income replacement protection, planning for extended healthcare costs, family needs, and generational transfers of wealth. At Providence Partners, we give you access to industry specialists. Those specialists focus on business succession, business owner planning, family and household protection, estate planning, planning for that income loss, or planning for long-term care solutions. Providence Partners is an Alabama-based company. We have offices in Birmingham and along the Gulf Coast. Our website is providencepartners.org, and you can reach us any of the working days.
Welcome back to Coasting in Retirement. Your host, Josh Knoll here. So as we discussed before the break, every week we scour the internet for financial articles that pertain to those of you in or near retirement. Our job, or at least we tell ourselves it is, help you all understand how these headlines impact you, especially when it comes to your money. Now, a quick note, if you want to read our reference articles yourself, we include the links in our show transcript, which you can find on our website, gulfcoastfa.com. Just look under the podcast tab. We post that, or more accurately, my son puts these episodes up on the website after it airs on our various radio stations. All that said, without further ado, Jay, let's get at with headlines of the week. You ready?
Sure, let's go for it, Josh.
All right, so Jay, let's kick it off with a recent article from Fidelity. It is titled 4 Pitfalls to Avoid When Rolling Over a 401k into an IRA. That seems to fit our theme for the day.
Yeah, didn't we just discuss this?
We did.
Okay.
Now, this article lists the 4 basic choices that retirees face with their 401k. So let's rehash those, okay? 1, we talked about this in the open. 1, keep the money in your former employer's plan if the plan permits. There are plans, if you got a low balance, there's like a kick out, but usually the plan is going to let you keep it there. Number 2, roll over the money into an individual retirement account that's an IRA. Number 3, roll it into a new employer's plan if that plan accepts transfers. And then number 4, which we're just on a knee-jerk reaction, we're probably going to say, hold, time out. But number 4 option is to cash it out, right? So at the end of the day, it's your money to some degree, right?
And if you do cash out pre-59 and a half, a lot of the money becomes the government's money.
Yeah, fair. All right, so then the article discusses the most common, obviously with the title, the most common mistakes that investors make when facilitating a rollover, including, Jay, not rolling into the correct type of IRA. All right, we're going to talk about that. Getting a withdrawal check made out directly to you. I know that sounds simple, stupid, but we're going to talk about it. Having a rollover stall. That happens. And something rarely discussed, but I think is vitally important. Once you can facilitate the rollover, it's not done until you actually reinvest your rollover IRA funds. So let's start this, Jay. Let's start with rolling into the correct type of IRA. Why, pre-tax to pre-tax, you think it would be simple, but it still gets screwed up. What have you seen?
Well, I've seen I'm supposed to go into a rollover, but it goes into a spousal, or which was weird, or it's supposed to go into traditional, and it goes into a Roth,
right?
Or if it's a Roth 401k and it accidentally rolls into traditional. A lot of things can get sideways if not taken care of appropriately.
Well, so now to be fair, in modern times, most custodians will catch it if it comes across incorrectly. But I can tell you down here working with RSA, which you and I are both fans of. Don't let me speak for you.
Yes.
But we are both fans of RSA.
Sure.
But when they send you all the paperwork, 1, their paperwork's extensive.
It is.
And 2, it can be a little confusing for people because what they call a non-taxable account, which you and I always, that's our trigger, ding, ding, ding for a pre-tax. No. What they refer to as non-taxable would be the Roth portion.
That's right.
And what they call taxable would be the pre-tax portion.
Yeah, they're just using layman's terms.
Yes. And again, no, not a criticism of RSA. That's common verbiage, if you will, but I can tell you that it can be confusing, and I've seen people have the wrong account on the paperwork, even though the intentions were right, they had the wrong paperwork. Number 2 then, Jay, was getting the withdrawal check made out directly to you. Now, I want you to put a little bit of pin in this because we got an article later in this segment that talks about the horrors of getting a check made in your name and what can go wrong. But if you all do a withdrawal check, again, if you're working, whether you're working self-directed, as Jay's mentioned a few times, or you're working with an advisor, you should have a well-known custodian that check is going to. And I know this sounds overly simplified, but it is vitally important that when you make that rollover check, the check is actually written to the custodian for benefit of you. And you'll usually see the abbreviation as FBO.
FBO, that's right. So when I did one, Josh, you'll recall, many of you listening will recall, I had a W-2 employer relationship where I was an employee. I had a 401k plan. I had a pension plan. And when I went independent and created my own company several years ago, I had the opportunity to do exactly what we're talking about, which was a 401k rollover and a pension rollover. So I had two decisions to make. And when the check came in, it was made out to the custodian, was made out to Charles Schwab for the benefit of John W. Stubbs Jr.
Yep.
That's how that check comes in. And then I take that and I give it to the new custodian, and then they put it into the account. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but then I still had some decisions to make once that goes in there. And so we have, let's do pin it, because we do want to make sure people are aware of, once you order a withdrawal or a rollover check, if you are going to be in the middle of that transaction with the U.S. Post Office, or perhaps maybe hopefully a UPS or a FedEx type of arrangement, that you know when that check is coming and you are on the lookout for it.
100%. Yes. All right. And then very quickly, it was having a rollover stall. I can tell you that a disproportionate amount of my time is spent calling 401k record keepers to get them to get moving. Some of them do great. I don't want to name names. Some are great. Some are just ridiculous. But there's a lot of, some of you all listening that have tried to do a 401k rollover before, especially some of you all that have done it in an inherited type of situation. You have wanted to pull your hair out. We have done it a gazillion times. I'm not saying I love it, but we know how to do it. So if you are having one that's stalling, give us a call. We can definitely help facilitate that. And then lastly, Jay mentioned it. Once you get the funds in there, it's time to do something.
That's right. We got to make some decisions. Let's go back to that stall.
Okay.
I mean, 2 weeks is about appropriate. I mean, I've seen it go quicker. 2 weeks is about an average good turnaround time. If you are heard of this or experienced this and you're longer than that, that's when you need to be proactive or get those involved with you and helping you make sure that they are staying on top of it as well.
Yep. Well, Jay, I'm gonna skip to our third article because I think it's a better segue. We just talked about this. So our third article, I want to highlight a particular irritation I have with most 401k record keepers. I have a couple of irritations. One, a lot of times it takes more phone calls than it should to facilitate the rollover. It just does. I guess I have three irritations. Two, there's a lot of physical paperwork involved with a lot of record keepers and things like that. And then three, this is one that's probably going to melt some of y'all's brain that have not done a rollover anytime, or maybe never done a rollover. The insistence on mailing a physical, if I had a piece of paper, I'd shake it right now, an old school paper check when conducting a 401k rollover. There's an article on Yahoo Finance. It details the worst possible outcome with this process. It's called New York City Man Lost $114,000 his entire 401k after his physical check from Paychex, that was the HR payroll divider, was stolen and cashed. Now, this article details some of the legal maneuvers that this guy has done to get his money back. And as of writing the article, he had not succeeded yet, and it's been a while. And there are some tips for avoiding this type of situation. But first, what I want to discuss with you, Jay, is there's this, what is often a giant, outdated, pain in the butt process, getting funds out of a 401k for a rollover. Most people have never done a rollover are shocked to learn when they learn that their only option is a paper check. And even worse, some record keepers refuse to offer priority mailing with a tracking number. Does that sound ridiculous?
It is ridiculous, Josh. But let me give you some thought.
Be the positive ray of sunshine here.
When you go to a bank teller, and let's not discount the fact that there are check washing schemes, and we have it down here in our area just a couple of years ago where different contractors were having checks stolen from the post office, and those were getting washed and cashed and losing money, and the banks were having to do a lot of research and investigating. Those people were caught. So the thieves were caught. But there's a lot of control in place with a paper check where IDs have to be shown if you want to. Obviously, you have to do that from setting up an account. But in order to have that check, you've got to make sure that is the individual that's coming to. There's a lot of control features there. Whereas on the flip side, if they offer an electronic transfer, so once an electronic transfer happens, sometimes, Josh, that money's gone.
This is fair.
And it's hard to reverse those types of transactions unless you know the right people. So I understand why custodians and the big record keepings and the trustees of these plans, I understand why they want to do the paper check. But you mentioned it just a second ago, and so did I. let's put a trackable
Right.
device or trackable mail feature on there, a FedEx, a UPS, something that we can know, hey, I know where my rollover check is. It left XYZ up in Missouri, and it's headed to down here in Daphne, and it'll be here in 2 days.
Well, and know this, Jay. I mean, you and I've done this for a long time. Occasionally, they will offer that. They'll say, "Hey, for an extra $25, we can do the record, the tracking." Right?
I did that.
Correct. Because a lot of times you have to ask.
Yeah, well, it was an option on my paperwork
Good.
that said, hey, if you'd like to have this tracked and expedited, go ahead and we'll take it from your account balance. No big deal. I think mine was $20 or $25, not that big of a deal. But for peace of mind, I was able to know when that check hit the mail, or excuse me, when it hit the service that they used and when it was headed to my house.
Well, and we cannot, in closing this article, I cannot stress this enough. It is one thing if a thief gets in your mailbox and you've got a name like John Smith or, Jim Brown or whatever. That's going to make it a lot easier, like Jay was saying, to do this check washing thing. If your check is written to Charles Schwab, FBO, Jim Smith, or Fidelity, FBO, John Brown, or Pershing, or any number of well-known third-party record keepers, I'm not saying it can't be done, but that's going to create an extra level of security around that check getting cashed. Do you agree?
I do. And let's talk about this real quick. Make sure your address of record on your 401k plan is the same address that you are currently living at. I have seen and heard numerous times where they said, oh, yeah, the check's in the mail. Well, you pull the statement out and you look at the client statement, and it's their house from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
They hadn't lived there in 4 years.
It's their ex's house.
Even worse. So just make sure that you're, when you make these moves from house to house or city to city or town, whatever, make sure you're updating all your addresses of record with all your important positions, insurances, investment accounts, especially 401k plan and 403b.
Well, we're happy to help you all do that, Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. All right, next article, Jay. We've thrown around terms without diving into them a little bit. We've talked about self-directed, and we've talked about advisor managed. So I want to use this next article as a way to kind of explain that a little bit better. So historically, financial advisors manage IRAs and individual accounts when they're in an investment management arrangement, or sometimes it's called wealth management. They can manage group plans, but generally speaking, they're managing IRAs, individual retirement accounts, and individual after-tax accounts. And while there are advisors assigned to 401k plans, I'm assigned to some 401k plans, that advisor role is typically different for an advisor in a 401k plan than it is for an advisor that directly manage your investment accounts. So let's talk about a couple different things. Let's explain self-directed versus advisor. Let's do that, Jay, and then I'll go to the rest of the article.
Okay.
Self-directed, because you've got some experience with that. Give the listeners a little tidbit on what that looks and works like.
Well, self-directed means I am directing it myself. I can do that without any. It's DIY, do it yourself. Mm-hmm. You can go to any one of the big investment companies out there, the Fidelities and the Schwabs, and you get to deal with somebody on an 800 number that may have 6 months of training. And I'm not knocking them. They've maybe studied hard and they've got the proper licensing, but you're asking them, hey, what do I do next? And they just say, oh, let me go here and click on this button and click on that button. They don't really have a lot of experience to bring to the table, but you are certainly directing it yourself, and you have to make some decisions on where the investments go once the dollars are in the plan. And then you are also responsible for making the decision to reallocate those dollars at some point in the future. If you've had a huge swing up in one of the accounts or a huge swing down and you want to do more in one type of objective versus another, it's on you. You've got to log in, you've got to do that, or you've got to make the phone call and talk with that person at an 800 number. Whereas you can still have a self-directed advisor type of plan where you're making some decisions with the advisor riding shotgun,
right?
Or the advisor's at the wheel and you're in shotgun. Whichever it is, that self-directed IRA with the advisor approach, that's exactly what you do at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors. It allows for that person to execute the rollover. and then say, okay, Josh, what do we do now? And then that's where you step in and you help fly the plane or take the steering wheel for a little bit, and then you give it right back to them to make some other decisions when the time is right.
Well, I've got a couple things to say on the self-directed, the DIY approach, right? So I would say that you folks out there that are doing your own accounts, generally speaking, it's either because you have the experience, or at least feel you have the experience, or you want to keep costs down. I think that's two broad statements. I think it's also a broad statement or a stereotype to say that you view advisors and investment managers as wanting to come in and say that maybe you don't have the experience or the expertise to do your own accounts. I don't take that approach. In fact, I think it's fantastic when my clients decide to learn and have some of their own accounts going. I have no problem with that. What we are willing to do, we are, how do you say this the right way, Jay? I'm not territorial around these accounts. I understand, especially in today's age when there's so much information, which is both a pro and a con for managing your own accounts, but there's a lot of information out there. If you want to give it a try, I have no problem with that. But for those of you all that are thinking DIY, I offer you the same thing I do every time. Hey, why don't you let us manage some of it, and let's just have a horse race, man. Let's just see what happens.
Fair enough.
We'll have us a horse race. And the one thing you don't know, and now I'm telling you, is on top of just the investment management piece, and Jay just alluded to this, there's a lot of other services that are included in our advisor fee. Give that a shot for a year. If you think at the end of the year it wasn't worthwhile, hey, no harm, no foul. I can tell you, top of my head, Jay, I don't think I've ever had anybody not stay around after a year. I could be wrong. I don't want to, that sounds really braggadocious. But that's one way to approach it if you want to split the baby on DIY.
And splitting the baby is not a bad deal either. If you have a client, and Josh, I know you have some of these that say, hey, I want to trade individual securities.
Right.
And you're like, whoa.
They want to trade risky individual securities that they're, yeah.
And that's not in your wheelhouse.
No, we do individual securities, but I mean, these are things that people would have heard of.
Yeah.
Right.
And certainly, if you want to have some fun time with your qualified money, you want to maybe, see if you can ride one or some of the meme stocks. I think one's going on right now is Kohl's, KOHLS, and there's some stuff in the news about that. If that's something you want to do, have fun, go do it. I mean, It's your money, it's your dollars, but you need somebody along the way, like a Josh, to sit there and say, hey, for the majority of this, let's take good care of it, and let's make sure we're investing it appropriately based on your needs and your objectives, so that one day we do have some additional funds that we can pull from in that retirement capacity.
Well, very good. Well, Jay, we didn't even get to the article title, so we'll just lay it out there, and that's fine. It's from Smart Asset. It's called "Do I Need a Financial Advisor for My 401k?" And I think we already answered that. It depends on the person, it depends on your approach. Just know, and I can't speak for all advisors, Jay, I can just tell you my approach is at Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, our approach is we're not here to judge or look down or belittle or anything. If you want to either manage some of your own investments or, in my opinion, more importantly, you want to learn from the organization that we have built over the years with incredible support staff like you at Providence Partners and, of course, J.D. Gardner, his team at Aptus Capital Advisors, then we're an open book. I mean, this is how we do things. So I think with that, the answer is going to be it depends on you. But if you do decide to choose one, my advice, find one that's open, that's focused on education, and that charges a fee for their service. So very good. All right, Jay, thanks for the headline feedback. Listeners, I hope you learned something from our discussion about these recent financial headlines. All this matters to your money. Now, speaking of money, if you'd like to start the conversation with us about your investments and retirement planning, I encourage you to pick up the phone and give us a call, 251-327-2124, or visit the website, Gulf Coast FA is in financialadvisor.com. Click on that blue button upper right-hand corner. That will put a phone call or a Zoom or, better yet, in-person meeting on my calendar. 3 locations, downtown Fairhope, Orange Beach, or Mobile. All right, folks, coming up next, Josh's crystal ball and big mouth. What have been some of my predictions? Have I been right? Was I ever wrong? Well, hold on. Hold that thought. What is Jay going to think about some of these predictions? We're going to find out a little bit about that and how we think this affects investors in the near and maybe the distant future. So join us after the break where we talk all things and poke a little fun at my big mouth. Stay tuned. Whether it's building a business from scratch with your own 2 hands and wanting to maximize the financial impact of those sacrifices, or growing a great nest egg by being a dedicated and reliable worker for years, or choosing to live a life well within your means in order to accomplish a lifelong dream of retirement, The last thing you want is to go with the wrong financial advice after you've worked so hard to accumulate your assets. You've also probably spent most of your life putting others' needs ahead of your own, and now it's your turn. We can help. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors is a locally owned, independent, fee-based financial planning, investment management, and tax planning practice. We have offices in Fairhope and Orange Beach. We serve all of Baldwin County and the Gulf Coast. We also have an easy-to-understand fee-for-service model with no sales quotas, no proprietary products. Our ultimate responsibility is to our clients' goals and dreams. You can reach us at 251-327-2124 or find us online at gulfcoastfa.com. That's GULF, like the Gulf of Mexico, Coast, FA as in financialadvisor.com. Welcome back. Your host, Josh Knoll, here, alongside guest co-host Jay Stubbs of Providence Partners. So, Jay, we're opinionated people. We got strong opinions. I would say that otherwise we would not be very interested to listen to on the radio show. We're 2 years into getting nominated for Nappy's Best Lifestyle Radio Show, so we must be doing something right. We haven't won yet. We got beat this year by, oh, good grief, the guy that does the gardening, Bill Finch.
Yeah.
I've never met him. I've heard he's an incredibly nice guy. So if you're listening, Bill, congratulations. But we're coming for you next year. All right. So with all that said, I like making predictions. Jay likes making predictions. Some of the things we make predictions on are just for fun. Some of them actually maybe have some type of pertinent information related to our clients. Either way, if you want to hear us make a prediction and hopefully, who knows, maybe eventually eat a little crow, let's get at it. So Jay, here we go. Earlier this year, when the S&P 500 index was hovering around 5,500, some of the Aptus Capital Advisors guys and I made a prediction about where it would end at the end of 2025. I said 6,200. I don't know the math on that, but that's a pretty decent amount of growth. John Luke Tyner said 6,500, and J.D. Gardner, who is generally speaking the most optimistic, and one would argue maybe even sometimes aggressive, he predicted 6,800. Well, as of this recording, the S&P 500 is over 6,300. We still have 5 months to go in this year, and a lot can happen. So you're welcome to throw out your prediction and put it in the hat if you want to of any of those. And you could go 7,500, you could go 5,500, whatever you want to predict. But what I'd rather, if you do make a prediction, then I'd like you to pivot. Can you briefly explain to our listeners how the S&P 500 and other well-known indexes function or play into insurance products that are indexed, such as fixed index annuities and index universal life? Then I'd like to get your prediction if these products will end the year with higher sales than last year, and if so, why?
So you gave me 60 seconds to answer.
No, I'm giving you 3. You got 3 minutes.
Okay. Well, we won't take all 3 minutes. However, this is a longer-term conversation, but there are objectives or different products that are out there in the insurance world, annuities and life insurance, specifically cash value life insurance, where you can participate in indexed performance. That's what Josh is meaning when he says index products inside annuities, index products inside of index universal life. Traditional cash value life insurance is whole life or universal life. And many years ago, indexed universal life came out, and it said instead of dividends from a whole life contract or credited interest from the general accounts of the insurance company's performance, can we do index performance? And that, yes, the answer to that is yes. We can tie it to any number of indexes, but to keep it simple, the S&P. When the S&P, when you take ownership of a policy, let's say June 1 is your policy anniversary, the following May 31st, if the index that you have chosen to participate in has grown, then you get a portion of that growth tied to your cash value. So your cash value can grow. What's neat about it, Josh, is the index product strategies, they have a downside protection. They have a floor. And the way the insurance companies in their annuity product as well as their life insurance product handle that is they use the premium dollars that you're putting in to go and purchase options on that specific index, and they give you the opportunity to participate. While you don't get to hit a home run and do the full index performance. So let's say the S&P is up 20% from policy anniversary A to B. I might get half of that, 50% participation, or I might get 75% of it. So there's different ways that we can grow our assets inside of a life policy and an annuity that track the S&P. Now, for a deeper dive on that, we would want to have a conversation with you in person so that we can explain it. There's a lot more moving parts. We don't want to try and overly simplify it because there is some education that comes with index performance. But to your credit, this whole show has been around IRA rollovers. A lot of people move a 401k balance, I did this, into an indexed annuity.
Okay.
Why? I will never lose the amount I roll over into that account. I am contractually guaranteed by the underwriting annuity company to never have the balance go below what I put in there. I'm always going to have the upside potential of index performance, and that is something that I appreciate. You know, you work hard for your dollars. You work hard to make contributions. You got the match from the company through the years. When you roll over, if an ETF strategy or something of that nature is not a very comfortable strategy for you and you want to have a little bit more protection, then you could ask Josh or any other advisor out there, hey, I've heard about these indexed annuities, and it's don't let somebody badmouth an annuity, as each individual's financial situation is unique, and we want to have an educated decision. But I wanted protections. I wanted downside protection and upside opportunity. I saw that with an indexed annuity, and that's where a portion of my retirement dollars now reside until I hit 59, 60, 70, or maybe even 90 years old.
Well, regular listeners will know that we tend to be skeptical of any product and service in the industry because we want to explain how it works and give the pros and cons. But to be fair, Jay, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but I believe last year, year-over-year sales were 23% higher on annuity products versus the year before. It was a huge number.
That's right.
Part of that is because everybody's getting older and there's more consumers. But quickly as we wrap the show, do you think they'll be higher or lower this year?
I think it actually is going to be higher in sales. And I think that's because the S&P itself is going to be higher at the end of this year. So
that's a fair point. Yeah.
You asked me to give a prediction on that. The historical average hovers around that 9.2, 9.5% average over the last, 70, 80 years. I can't remember the exact time frame. And there are some days like a middle-aged guy like a Josh Knoll trying to make a layup in a pickup basketball game. The stock or the S&P barely gets off the ground, but it is up year to date. It's up around 8% as of the recording of this show. I do think it'll hover around that 10% range. So 10% based off 5,800 is going to be 580 points on top of that. So let's take it to the 6,500-ish range.
All right,
which is one of your guys,
John Luke Tyner.
Yeah,
okay, all right. We'll do a Price is Right at the end of the year. We'll see where it lands. Very good. All right. Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed a little behind the scenes look at how Jay and I form our opinions, and that we have a little fun with this. We're going to ask you all one last time. Reach out to us, 251-327-2124, or visit the website, gulfcoastfa.com. Last reminder on that, blue button, upper right-hand corner. That will put something on my calendar. My preference is in person. Let's meet in person, downtown Fairhope, Orange Beach, or Mobile, near the intersection of Dolphin Street and I-65. We got 3 convenient locations, and we are hustlers. We are available to meet. Let's do it. We'd love to meet you all. Well, folks, that is it for this week. I want to give a huge thank you to my guest co-host, Jay Stubbs. Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome. Providence Partners here to support Josh.
Well, and thank you for that. You are the show sponsor, your business, Providence Partners. Thank you to our 2 radio stations. That's FM Talk 106.5 out of Mobile and WHEP 92.5 FM in Foley. Many thanks to the provider of our show music, that is local band Sloth Racer. Huge thank you to the show producer. That's my son, Peyton Knoll. And as always, my sincere appreciation for all of you out there who have been listening and joining us on this journey. We'd love to be a part of your journey as well. Until we talk again, have a wonderful and productive week. This has been Coasting in Retirement with Josh Knoll. Gulf Coast Financial Advisors, LLC, known as GCFA, is a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Alabama and in such other jurisdictions where it is registered, filed the required notices, or is otherwise excluded or exempted from such registration and or notice filing requirements. Registration does not indicate or imply that GCFA has attained a particular level of skill or ability, nor does it constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, or any other state securities regulator. The Coasting in Retirement radio program serves mainly to disseminate general information, including those pertaining to GCFA's advisory services, together with access to additional investment-related information, publications, materials, and links. The publication of this radio show should not be construed by any client and or prospective client as GCFA's solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions in securities, nor should be interpreted as GCFA providing personalized investment advice or any type of professional advice for compensation wherever this program is broadcast. Any subsequent direct communication by GCFA with a prospective client will be conducted by a representative that is either registered or qualifies for an exemption or exclusion from registration in the state where the prospective client resides. Certain information, news stories, headlines, data, charts, graphs, figures, or statistics presented on this radio program may have been obtained from third-party sources that are believed to be generally reliable, but which GCFA may not have independently verified. GCFA does not and cannot guarantee the timeliness, accuracy, or reliability of any such third-party information and undertakes no obligation to update or correct any information that may become obsolete, unreliable, or inaccurate. This radio program also contains the opinions, views, and perspectives expressed by Josh Knoll and any other GCFA representative, which are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions, views, or perspectives of GCFA as a firm. Such personal views and opinions should not be construed as endorsements or professional advice from GCFA. GCFA makes no representation or warranty regarding the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any information on this radio program and disclaims any liability for any direct or indirect loss or damage incurred from using or relying on such information. GCFA and Providence Partners are not affiliated, nor are any of their respective representatives.